So we are getting close to the close of the series we've been in really since the beginning of the year. New year, new you. And throughout this conversation, we've been talking about how when God gets a hold of your life, he doesn't leave you as you are. He begins to change you. He begins to remake you, all of you, heart, mind, soul, and strength. And so we started with this idea that there is a version of you that is the real you. It's who you were made to be. And God's desire, his intention for your life is to remove from you everything that's not you, to unearth you, if you will, to unleash you and to free you from everything that's not who you were meant to be, that we call sin. Sin fundamentally is a denial of who you are. It's any action, any decision that you make that goes against God's design and his intention for you. And it goes against the design and intention of God for every other person and for the world. And so we started with this idea of our whole selves, and then over the last few weeks, we've talked about our hearts, our minds, and our souls, which brings us to strength. And when we talk about strength, we're talking about inner strength, right? We're talking about the human spirit, if you will, like this drive and determination, this energy within each one of us to overcome the odds, to fight through obstacles, to do the right thing even when it's difficult, to never give up and to not give in. And the power of the human spirit is remarkable. Like we see examples of it all around. I'm amazed by things that people are able to overcome. It's remarkable. And yet, the power of the human spirit has a limit, right? You will run out of strength eventually, just in case you're wondering. Like if you go long enough, hard enough, you will burn out. And it looks different for different people. Right? For some of us, it results in anger, and we lash out at the people that we love. We push people away who we should be drawing near. For others of us, it's bad decisions where we compromise in our integrity and our character. For others of us, we curl up in a ball and just try to pretend that life doesn't exist, right? We just try to hide away. Because life is hard, right? Living is not for the faint of heart. And even the greatest things in life, the things that you enjoy the most, the things that you love the most, they are still difficult. They're still hard. You can have your dream job. You can love everything about your job. It's just the best job that you've ever had, and I promise you it is still work at the end of the day. And you can have the greatest marriage, and you love your spouse. I hope you do, and it is still work, isn't it? It's work to be married. It's work to be single, by the way. It's work to have friendships. All of these things are beautiful and wonderful, and we love them, but they are difficult. They are hard, coupled with the reality that we live in a society that is go, 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 relentless all the time. And it's enough to just get to a place where at some point you want to check out. At some point you want to say, I don't want to go anymore. Like this is all I can take. I can't take anymore. I sound like Popeye, right? I mean, this is all I can handle. In fact, I'm not sure if I could even handle this much. And it's interesting that when we reach that point, when we get to that limit, that often our default is that we really wish that God would just make our lives easier. We want God to just take away the problems, the things that are hard. God, just take that away, solve that, deal with that, make my life better, but really make my life easier. But what if God had a completely different approach in mind for your life? What if God's intention was not to make your life less, but to make you more? See, I think oftentimes we get confused about what life is really about. We get it all wrong. And we think that God should be making our lives better when his intention is to make us better. And what we really want is for God to just make our lives easier. And he says, no, I want to make you stronger than you possibly imagine. I want to give you strength behind your dreams. In Isaiah 40, the prophet Isaiah, he is writing to the people of Israel. And they are complaining all the time, which is what they seem to pretty much always do, because God is never doing the things that they want God to do. It's very frustrating for them. What they want is for God to make their lives easier, to make their lives better, to give them prosperity, to make their nation great and secure, and to make them significant. And so they want God to make their lives better and easier, and God is not playing along. He's not playing ball, and so they keep complaining. And so at the end of chapter 40, Isaiah, he calls them out. And he reminds them of who God is, and he shows them God's actual intention, his actual desire for their life that they could never have expected. And so in verse 27, Isaiah writes this, "Why do you say, O Jacob, and complain, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, my cause is disregarded by my God. There are actually two complaints here that the people were leveling against God. They were bringing against God. First, they were complaining that God isn't paying attention to them. My way is hidden from the Lord. God doesn't see where I'm going. He doesn't see what I'm doing. My way is hidden from him. And then second, they're complaining that God doesn't care what happens to them. Right? My cause is disregarded by my God. They're saying, God, you're not paying attention to me, and you don't care what happens to me. In other words, they're saying that God, he's like this deadbeat dad who comes home and the toddler walks out the front door and he doesn't even care because he's grabbing a beer and sitting on the couch to watch football. And they're like, that's who you are, God. Like, you don't care about us. You're not paying attention to us. You don't really love us. By the way, as a parent, can I just say, isn't it great when your kids tell you that you don't love them? Like, that's the best. And by the way, if you're a parent, this will happen to you at some point. At some point, your child will say, you don't love me. And you just want to be like, you got me. I don't know how you saw through it because I was doing such a good job. Like I thought I had you really fooled, as I was showering what seemed to be endless love and affection your way and just providing for your every need. But man, good for you. You saw through my guise. You saw me for who I really am. You're right. I do not care about you at all. Right? But see, this is what they were accusing God of. This is how they're speaking to God. God, you don't pay attention to us. You don't care about us. You don't love us. Which, to be fair, it can feel that way at times. And sometimes doesn't it feel that God isn't giving us his undivided attention? That he's not paying us the attention that we want. He doesn't care what happens to us, because if he did, then surely things wouldn't be working out the way that they are. I think there's something deeper going on here, though. I think if you go even further, push even further, it's not just a matter that we wish God was paying us more attention. What we really want is for God to do what we want him to do. See, we want God to do things our way. I mean, wouldn't it be great if God would just take your advice? Wouldn't it be great if God would just do things your way for once? I mean, I think if we were to have a really honest conversation with God, it would be like, God, listen, I've got some ideas, for how the world should work, for how things should be going in the world, right? Like, I can send you some notes. I'll make a list. I can put a proposal together. And you know what, God, I'm reasonable. If you don't want to take my advice for the whole world, can I at least give you the script for my life? Can I tell you how it should play out? And God says, man, I appreciate that. I'm good. No offense, but you're just not quite up to the level of, God, creator of all. See, Isaiah, this is what he wants to remind them of, because once you know who God is, then these complaints that he's not paying attention, he doesn't care, they are utterly absurd. So he says, verse 28, this is his response. Do you not know? Have you not heard? And the answer is, of course they've heard. Of course they know. Obviously they know. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. Isaiah's like, seriously? Like you don't know? You haven't heard? You're really so clueless that you don't know who God is. Here, let me remind you. He is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He's the one who doesn't grow weary or tired, whose understanding no one can fathom. See, there's no way that God, who's the creator of all, has lost track of you. And there's no way that God who created you, who gives you all of these good things, there's no way that he doesn't care about you. He hasn't forgotten you. He's not distracted from you. Right? God is not that dad who comes home and shoves you to the side and grabs a cold one and sits on the couch because he's had a long day. God does not grow tired. He knows exactly who you are, where you are, what you're doing, all your thoughts, your fears, your dreams, all of it. He is absolutely attuned to you. The real problem is that his ways are not your ways. That's the part that we struggle with. See, Isaiah's audience assumed that God must be falling down on the job, right? This is divine malpractice, clearly. God is falling down on the job because he's not doing what they thought he should do. And instead, he was doing what they needed him to do. But see, in their minds, the fact that he wasn't doing what they wanted him to do, that's a sign that God doesn't love them. See, as soon as you equate God's love with doing what you want him to do, then every time God doesn't do what you want him to do, it will trigger a crisis of faith. Right? You will begin to question his love. Every time you experience hurt or pain or disappointment or failure or discouragement or loss, in that moment you have a crisis of faith, not over necessarily his existence, but whether God actually cares at all. Does God really love you? And my wife, Carrie, has a insanely high tolerance for pain. Like just a very, very high pain threshold. And I can't imagine being able to endure the kind of pain that she has been through in her life. I mean, just for starters, this week we're celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary, and so talk about long suffering. It's amazing. I mean, you have no idea what that blessed woman puts up with. But not only that, she's a marathoner, and so, man, she gets up at like 3:30 in the morning to go run these ridiculous miles and what she puts her body through. But not only that, I knew she was tough long before that because she's also given birth to 4 children, all natural, right? No epidural, no drugs, nothing. Now, let me be clear about this. I had no part in this, all right? Like, this was not my birth plan. Like, she writes the birth plan, like, husbands, right, stay out of it. This is not your concern. Like, she makes all the calls. I just say, honey, whatever you want. I was like, if you want drugs, man, sign up, take the drugs. And understand that when we first were pregnant, like, this was never her plan. This was not what she intended. We had friends who were telling us about their birth experiences, and they go in and they get an epidural and they sleep through all of labor and they're woken up to deliver. And Carrie was like, that sounds great. Let's sign me up for that. But then we went to a birthing class. And the instructor there said something that absolutely changed Carrie's perspective. And in fact, I was telling Carrie that I was going to share this story, and she remembered immediately what the instructor said. She quoted it. Your body was designed for this. And it changed everything in Carrie's mind. Your body was designed for this. And what that meant is that the pain that you experience is purposeful pain. It's not pain that's telling you that things are going wrong. It's pain that's telling you that things are going right. And you are that much closer to meeting your child. And for Carrie, this completely shifted her mindset. Like in that moment, something changed in her perspective so that she was no longer afraid of the pain that she hadn't even felt yet. She was trying to get away from. And instead, she began to see that pain as something to endure, something to fight through because she wanted to meet her newborn child. By embracing a new perspective, you can actually change the very meaning of your pain. It can change the whole way that you understand what God is doing in your life. See, the reason that we assume pain means God doesn't love us is because we've never embraced the reality that God intends to use the world and everything that's in it, the good and the bad, to refine us, to change our souls, to reshape us, to look more like him. I understand that there's nothing intrinsically good about pain. There's nothing intrinsically good about tragedy that we experience. There are horrible things that we go through in life, absolutely terrible things. There's nothing intrinsically good about cancer, about getting a disease. There's nothing intrinsically good about death or loss or injustice. Like none of those are intrinsically good, and yet God in his grace has the power to take that pain and to repurpose it for your good. But see, until you embrace that reality, that pain, whatever it is in all of its form, will always trigger a crisis of faith. You will always wonder, does God really love me? Well, one of those pithy Christianese sayings that you've heard and they've been around for forever is one that I absolutely, probably one of my least favorite, is that God never gives you more than you can handle. And every time I hear that, I just wonder if the person who made that up, like if they'd ever read the Bible. Because that is not what the Bible says. God never, ever says, I won't give you more than you can handle. What he says is, I'll never give you more than I can handle. Which, by the way, is not reassuring, right? Because I can't handle very much. And so for God to give me everything he can handle, like that's gonna crush me, right? This is like being at the gym and like you're sitting on the bench press and you're cranking out 150 pounds, and you're feeling good about yourself, and then a professional weightlifter walks over and says, I'm going to add a few plates, but don't worry, I'm not going to give you more than you can handle. I'm not going to give you more than I can handle, right? Like, I'm not going to give you more than what I can handle. You're dead, right? Like, that's just going to crush you. They put 400 pounds on there. It will destroy you. God says, I'm not going to give you more than I can handle, but he does so because what matters is what he can handle, not what you can handle. See, what's at question? What matters is not what you can handle on your own. What matters is what you can handle with him. And see, Isaiah's audience, right? These people they're talking, that he's speaking to, like they're looking at their circumstances going, God, I don't want to handle this. This is more than I can handle. This is a bad situation. This is painful. This is difficult. And Isaiah says, you're right. Absolutely. Not fun, not pleasant, not great. But guess what? God's not going to make it easier. Instead, he's going to give you the strength that you need. And he says, he gives strength, verse 29, to the weary and increases the power of the weak. And so here's the good news and the bad news, right? The good news is, I'll give you the good news first. The good news is that when you're weak, God is there to give you strength. Here's the bad news. You have to be weak, and you have to know it. You have to get to the end of yourself. You have to come to the end of what you can do on your own. You have to get to the point of admitting, this is the prerequisite, that you cannot handle life on your own. And then God says, finally, I've been waiting for this moment. Now, I'm going to move into your life and watch what I can do through you that you could never have dreamed of on your own. And the problem is that most of us, we don't want to admit that we can't do it. I mean, we will hold out, right? We don't want to admit that we need help. We don't want to admit that we can't handle all of life on our own if we just suck it up and dig a little deeper. Like we want everybody to think we've got all pulled together. In fact, sometimes we would rather fail. We would rather be defeated. We would rather wallow in our self-pity, feeling sorry for ourselves that we're not as strong as we were, instead of allowing God to help us, or other people for that matter, and our pride gets in the way, as though somehow we should be able to handle everything in our life, which no one else can ever do, right? But we're the exception, right? We're different. I mean, I get it that some of you, like, you can't handle your life, but I can handle my life. And Isaiah says, that's dumb. He says, that's dumb. Look at the very next verse. Even youths grow tired and weary. He says, you think you can handle it? And he says, that's ridiculous. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. In other words, it doesn't matter how strong you are, how much energy you have, how capable you are. At some point, your strength will run out. But that's not a reason to beat yourself up. Right? There are some of you hate the fact that you can't handle your life all on your own. You feel like a failure. You feel like you're so disappointed, so even disgusted with yourself because you should be able to handle everything that happens in your life and you don't need help from anybody, and you're frustrated and you're discouraged and that you're as tired and exhausted as you are, when in reality, you're only human. You're not God. You're not the creator of the universe. You're not all powerful. You are not God. You are only human. But, and here's the amazing part, with God, the math changes. Verse 31, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. I can't tell you how tempted I was to not use this passage this week. I really thought about just using another one, and I thought of this weeks ago and didn't really anticipate, wasn't thinking that far ahead. But I love you guys, so here we are. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. I have always been amazed by the stories of people who've endured and overcome tremendous obstacles and challenges in their lives. And there are people who have survived horrible hardships and tragedies and come out stronger on the other side. Talk about the power of the human spirit. It's astounding, it's remarkable. And I've also been utterly amazed by the depth of human weakness. People at the first sign of difficulty, they abandon their commitments, who give up on their convictions, who compromise their integrity and their character, and they give up and they give in because the pressure was just too much. It was more than they could handle. And as I've thought about this more, I see that the difference between the two, I think it stems from a difference in vantage point, a difference in perspective. That the people who endure, the ones who don't give up, the ones who don't give in, they have a bigger picture. They see a way through what they're experiencing. They see a way out of the pain because they have a bigger picture of what the future could be. But the people who panic, the people who give in, they can't see a way out. All they can see is the pain that they are experiencing right then, and they cannot see the bigger picture. None of you will appreciate this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. As a Dallas native, this has been a very rough week for Dallas sports. So not only has, the Eagles, they're in the Super Bowl and look amazing, and the Cowboys are increasingly irrelevant, but the Mavericks this week traded away our superstar generational player, Luka Doncic, to the LA Lakers. A move that is being called unprecedented and the worst and stupidest trade in NBA history for good reason. You do not trade away a player like Luka Doncic. And so I've thought a lot about this, way too much. And I've watched interviews and I've read articles. It's just haunting me. It doesn't help that one of my best friends is a Laker fan, and he is just killing me right now. But I've thought a lot about this, and I have no great insight. I have just been reading the articles and watching the interviews. But see, it strikes me as a panic move. It strikes me that it seems like that the GM looked at this generational talent, and instead of seeing the generational part and the superstar part, saw the fact that this kid is 25 and sometimes he can be kind of a pain, which geniuses often are. And he's a genius on the court. And then he looked ahead and he realized that in a year that they were going to have to decide about whether to offer him a giant contract, and he panicked. And he was like, man, I feel this pain of like, what do I do with this player who I can't control, who doesn't do what I want? And then we're looking at this big contract. And at some point he said, you know what? I just want out of it. And so he calls one person with the Lakers and trades him away. See, to me, this is a classic case of talking yourself into a bad decision. You see only the negative, right? All you see, you're overwhelmed by the negative, and you cannot see the positive. You can't see the bigger picture, like winning, being good. And all you want to do is to escape the pain. Haven't you ever had a decision like that? Where you were just so overwhelmed by the negative, you couldn't escape it. All you could feel was the pain of that problem, and you just wanted it solved. And so you made a knee-jerk reaction. You solved it to ease the pain, and then you looked back and thought, I botched it. And in that moment, when you make that kind of a decision, you're too close to the situation. You can't step back and see the bigger picture for what it is. And so you overreact, you're overcome, you're overwhelmed, and you make a bad decision. And see, the reason is because you've lost sight of hope. That's what the bigger picture offers you. It's hope. In verse 31, the Hebrew word that's translated hope, sometimes it's translated wait, those who wait upon the Lord. But the sense here is hopeful expectation. It's those who believe that God will come through for them. Right? These are the ones who don't panic. They're the ones who have a bigger picture for what God is doing and how he can repurpose their pain. Right? These are the ones who keep fighting. They see what's on the other side. They refuse to panic. They refuse to give in. See, to soar on wings like eagles, this is to have a whole new vantage point. Is to be lifted up out of the fray, out of the moment, and to see the future that God is creating. It's to have a completely different vantage point. This is the power of hope, that it lifts you up out of the chaos, out of the fray, out of everything that's pressing in on you, so that you can see the bigger picture, so that you can keep running and you can keep walking and not grow weary. See, without hope, the world will cave in on you. Life will get closer and tighter, and it will crush your spirit. But with hope, not only will you keep moving, but you know your destination. Like, you are running and you are walking towards something. There is intention, there is direction, there is purpose, so that when you encounter those incredibly difficult situations and times and tragedies that you will face, you can keep fighting through because you know it leads to a better future. See, that is the power of hope. I actually really didn't want to talk about the Super Bowl today, partially because I know that's what you're all actually thinking about right now, which is hurtful. But I know you're enduring this message so that you have helpful expectation for a better afternoon. I get it. But listen, I will admit that the Eagles have a phenomenal team, right? They're amazing. I mean, they have amazing talent on both sides of the ball, lots of talent, lots of youthful talent, great future ahead of them, all pros everywhere. I mean, they're a phenomenal team, and I'm not making any predictions, okay? I have no idea how this game will go. I figure it could go either direction. But I'll tell you that the Chiefs have one advantage, and we all know his name, Patrick Mahomes. And here's what he brings. Not just the fact that he's perhaps the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. When he steps on the field, what he gives to his team is hope. No matter what the odds are, no matter who that other team is on the other side, you better believe that when Patrick Mahomes steps on the field, his team, they don't just believe they can win, they believe they will win. Like, there is no doubt in their mind. Like, if Mahomes gets taken out, like, it's over. But so long as Mahomes is upright, so long as Mahomes is on the field, like, they believe, right? They believe they will win. And see, the question, when you are facing long odds in your life, the question you have to ask yourself when you're in the fight, when you're in the muck, when you're in the struggle is, how well do you believe? Like, what do you believe? How strong is your faith? Do you believe that God is the creator of the universe? Is he the everlasting God? Is he for you? Will he come through for you? Because that is the difference between being lost in the fray and rising above it. That is the difference between whether life crushes you or whether you soar on the wings of life towards the future God has for you. That is the question. What do you believe? How strong is your hope? See, church, can I tell you, I have this passion. I don't know if you can hear it. I have this fire inside of me that as a church, like, we would not be like the rest of the world. Like, I don't want us to be like the rest of the world. I want us to be who God's created us to be. Because the rest of the world, can I tell you, man, it is messed up. And the rest of the world is plagued by weakness, right? People bail on their commitments. People give up on their convictions. They compromise their character and their integrity. Their spirits are crushed. They are living defeated and paralyzed lives, and that is not what God has made us for. God has made us to be strong because the world needs people who are strong. The world needs people who will not give up, who will not give in, who will not lose heart, who will say, man, this is the right thing to do, and I'm going to continue to do the right thing even though it's hard. People who will wade into the muck of life and fight their way through because we have a hope that cannot be shaken. And the spirit within us is greater, is stronger than the spirit in the world. And by the way, the true measure of your strength is in how strong you make others around you. The real measure of your strength is how well you serve others so that they become strong as well. And so who are you lifting up so that they can keep running? Who are you lifting up so that they can keep walking and not grow weary? There are some of you, you have been following Jesus for years and you are still tired. You are still weak. And one of the ways that you grow stronger, it's not by digging within yourself and sucking it up. One of the ways is by serving someone else and sharing your hope with them. Another way that we grow stronger is by being around people who are stronger than we are. And some of you, you are barely fighting through life. You are hanging on by your fingernails, and you have experienced intense difficulty and pain and struggle. And so I'm going to keep telling you what I say all the time, and I'm going to keep saying it until you believe me. You need to get into community with other people who will encourage you, who will support you, who will remind you that God is the everlasting God. He is the creator of the universe, who made you, who loves you, who will not abandon you, who will not give up on you. who will tell you to keep believing, to keep hoping, and to keep looking for the future that God has for you. See, the future that God has made for us, can I tell you, it's not an easy future. See, we wish it was. It's so easy where when things start to get difficult, we're so eager for God to just give us an easy future, just make everything better for us and just take care of everything. But the future that God has made us for, that he's made you for, is a future that only the courageous, only the wise, only the strong can possess. And God will use everything at his disposal, the good, the bad, the world, your relationships, everything, to make you who you are meant to be, to have the courage and the wisdom and the strength to take hold of the future that you're made for. And this is the very reason that Jesus came, to save us from a future we were not meant for. We were never intended to be eternally separated from God, and Jesus came to save us from that future and to secure for us the future we're meant for. A future with him, a future of life. One of my favorite stories in the Gospels is when Jesus is out in the boat with some of his disciples, and Jesus is worn out from his day. And so he falls asleep in the boat, and this tremendous storm comes up on the waters. And it is tossing the boat around. And remember, these guys are fishermen. They know how to navigate a storm on the sea, but they think this is it. It's over. We're dead men. There's no way we're getting out of this one. And Jesus, he's just asleep. And so they go and they wake him up. And I love this. They wake him up. They're like, Jesus, don't you even care that we're going to die? See, they sound exactly like the people that Isaiah was talking to, the people of Israel. They're like, God, you're not paying attention to us. You don't care about us. You don't really love us. And hundreds of years later, here are the disciples. They're waking Jesus up saying the same thing. Jesus, don't you even care that we're going to die? Don't you even love us? And I love the irony of that statement. Jesus, don't you even care? They had no idea. If only they could have known in that moment how much he cared. So much so that he was willing to let himself be arrested unjustly, tried unjustly, beaten, tortured, mocked, humiliated, and nailed to a cross. That's how much he cared. That's how much he was willing to sacrifice so that they could live. And that's how much he loves us. And that's how much he loves you. If you have never given your life to Jesus, what you need to know is that he already gave his life for you. And if you have reached this point in your life where you realize you can't handle it all, and maybe you haven't, maybe you still haven't hit the wall, you're still cruising, you think you can handle everything, you can make it on your own, can I tell you that you're going to hit the wall eventually? That day is coming. I took my kids skiing last week, and I tell them, the trees are undefeated, right? Never lost. You hit the tree, you lose, okay? You will hit the wall, and the wall is undefeated against you, against me. But God changes the math. And if you are ready, you've come to this place where you realize it's time. It's time to surrender your life. It's time to recognize that Jesus can create for you. He has for you what only he can give you. You cannot make it for yourself. He has the forgiveness that you need for your sin. He has the future that you're meant for, eternal life with him. And if you reach that point and you're ready, I'm just going to create some space here in a moment, and I want to lead you in a very simple prayer. Jesus, I give you my life. Who would you rather give your life to? See, you're going to give your life to someone. You're going to give your life to someone who might abuse it. You might give it to a politician, to a political party, or to your job. You're going to give it to something. Maybe you're just trying to hold on to yourself. How well have you treated yourself lately? Or would you rather give your life to the one who loved you enough to sacrifice his life for you? Seems like a way better deal to me. Would you all just bow your heads and close your eyes for a moment? And if you are already a follower of Jesus, would you just join me in praying for anyone right now who is at that line of faith and ready to make that decision? Let's just pray. Father, I just lift up anyone right now who has come to the end of themselves and they realize maybe for the first time that you are the one they need. That Jesus, you are the way, the truth, and the life. And you are the only rescue plan there is. There isn't another one. And if that's you right now, just speak to you. Right now with your head bowed and your eyes closed. If you're ready to take that step of faith, that very simply in your heart of hearts, you can whisper, you can say it out loud, Jesus, I give you my life. That's all you have to say. Jesus, I give you my life. And when you say that, you are admitting that Jesus is the one that you need. That he has the forgiveness that you need. He has the hope and the future that you need. Jesus, I give you my life. Father, I just lift up anyone right now who has made that prayer, who right now has surrendered their life to you. Maybe this is the very first time they've even spoken to you. And I pray that right now that they would just have a supernatural sense of your presence. Just undeniable that you have come into their life. But Lord, it's not about feelings. It's not about a wave of emotion. It's about knowing with confidence that you are here and that you've heard their prayer. So I pray that you would just surround them with your love. You would draw them close. Lord, to pray that we're surrendering our lives isn't a prayer that we make just once. It's actually the prayer of our everyday, moment by moment, because it's so tempting throughout life to try to take our lives back and to try to do it on our own. So Lord, for all of us here, maybe we've been followers of you for years, maybe it's been more recent, but all of us, again, we come before you now and we say together, we give our lives to you. We give our lives to you. We surrender our thoughts, our plans, our decisions, our finances, our relationships. We surrender all of it to you because you are good and you love us more than we can imagine. God, I pray that you would fill us with your strength this week. I pray that we would come to the end of ourselves yet again and you would fill us with your power, that we would be a light in this world and that we would go forth and share with others the hope that you've given to us. And we pray this in your name. Amen.